Stop! You violated the law!
Hello, welcome to Breath of Life Development. My name is Josh Foreman. Today we're going to be diving into the completion of a project that I started way back in the year of our Lord, 1994 or 5, somewhere around there. I was at the Art Institute of Seattle getting a degree in industrial design technology, and one of the classes that we had was working with a variety of materials, one of which was plexiglass. So naturally I wanted to make some fantastical things. I made this sword and dagger set that I thought would be cool. I never ended up finishing it. It was just kind of a practice thing to learn to work with the material. But recently it clicked in my mind that these would be perfect for this thing I've been developing in Talifar, which are these creatures. Actually, real quick, sorry. I do want to give a quick request of you guys. I've got a idea for a Kickstarter project, something that I think could be really big, like that could appeal to a lot of different artists and crafters and creative people out there. But in order to really do it well, I've been told I need to get the services of this other company that helps promote the Kickstarter, blah, blah, blah. But they won't even look at you unless you have a mailing list with over a certain number of subscribers to that mailing list, and I'm close-ish. If just some of you guys would do me a solid and just sign up for my mailing list, if you don't mind getting an email once or twice a month, that would be so helpful. I could get this thing rolling, and I'm really excited to share that with you, but I'm not going to go into any details now. I just want to throw that out there. If you could sign up for my mailing list, link below, please do that. Thank you. Okay, back to the regularly scheduled program. We were talking about these characters from my world of Talifar, specifically these guys. These are the Varon, and they create, from under their gills, they can exude a substance called pearlescence. You know, in Middle Earth, there's the mithril that has all these amazing attributes. That's kind of like the Talifar version of this, is this pearlescence. And so basically, the Varon can exude, the female specifically, they can exude this substance that comes out, you know, like a spider web sort of thing, but it comes out like malleable plastic, and then it could be formed and shaped into a variety of things. And in one of the stories, it's like book 11 or 12 that we've written, one of the Varon discovers a way to make translucent or transparent pearlescence, and one of them is a weapons grade translucent material. And so, yeah, I had this epiphany. I had these blades that have been laying around for over 20 years, and I thought, oh, this is the perfect time to do something really cool with them, to kind of bring to life one of the things from our book series of Talifar. So that's what we're going to do today. I got nothing else to say. Let's just jump to it. So starting out with these rough plexiglass swords that I made 20-something years ago. You can see I had a vague idea of what I wanted. They're pretty, the shape's pretty wobbly, but I could make something out of this. I figured I'm going to have to affix the handles really well, so I put these holes in here so that I can kind of make the handles that they could pop on and off and be fitted on there well. For this project, I'm kind of winging it. I just want to organically design these things as I go and see how it turns out. And so I'm playing around with the idea of how much do I want to actually cover, what's the general style that I want. I know I want it to be some kind of underwater-ish theme, but I'm using Freeform Air, which is a product from Smooth On. It's like epoxy clay, but it's much lighter and easier to carve. Good for prototyping. Not so strong though, you can see it kind of crumbles if it's too thin. I needed to sand down the edges a bit so that I can have more room for the handle there. And yeah, trying to clean up the general flow of the lines, get rid of all the wobbles and that sort of thing. And now I'm experimenting with adding a spine to the back of the blade. I think that's a pretty cool look. And this was the point where I decided to get a little representational with it. Rather than being just abstractly sinewy lines or whatever, I decided, you know what, let's see what it's like if these are some sort of undersea animals. Playing around with the general flow of the shapes there. And experimenting with, if I have this top part, what can it be? And I was thinking some sort of saw tooth edge thing. So I made all these little bits and I was playing around with embedding them in different ways. You can see this stuff holds up surprisingly well for being such a long, thin piece there. Looking at some reference here, always look at reference. It's such a great thing to do. And trying to figure out how to lay out these teeth if I wanted them to be, very precise measurement or just an organic, messy flow to it. And here I'm experimenting with the kind of shape language that I want to have. I kind of settled on these flowing peaks, kind of like sand dunes, or the way you can see sand or mud ripple under the surface of perturbed water. And then I thought, if I'm doing eyes on these things, it might be interesting to actually have that be a negative space. So I'm drilling holes for the eyes there. Oh, by the way, I moved on to using epoxy clay. I've got a tutorial on that here, if you're interested. And yeah, I'm kind of happy with the direction this is going. Still needs some more development, and I'm not super confident that I could get both sides being very symmetrical, but since I built them in halves, I'll be able to sort of compare them and make sure they're mirrored pretty well. Again, playing around with the positioning of the teeth and the little saw ridge on the back, and trying a couple different patterns to see what I like best. One of the things I wasn't quite happy with was the way the jaw was flowing into that bottom spike there. I thought it would be better to sort of pull the line of the jaw out better. Using my rubbery numbering tool there to get some nice sharp edges. And here, now that I have the jaw like that, it feels like the thing needs to stick out further, so I'm sort of turning it into a tongue here. I just cut it off and I'm moving it down. And experimenting with some different shapes. Eventually I just went back to that sort of crescent moon look that I had. And now I'm reproducing the shapes that I had on the other side, on this side. This process involves laying the general shape in and then doing a lot of sanding and carving and then going back and doing more lines and more sanding and carving. You know the drill. Yeah, this is what I was talking about, being able to look at the design in a mirrored way. So I'm pretty happy that I went through the effort of making it two-sided so I could pop the sides off and see them next to each other. Now here I'm trying to figure out how to sandwich these things together and then have the top element on. I'm using Vaseline as a separator, and then I can apply this top ridge saw part and pop it off and work on it separately. I tried to keep the parts separated for as long as possible during this process, just because it's so much easier to, sand and carve when you can pull things apart. The bottom of this jaw, I wasn't happy. It wasn't really tapering well, and now it is. Now I have this little nub down here for your index finger, and I thought that was a good opportunity to work a different sort of design, a fishy shaped language in there, so I decided to give it some fins. I have the tape in there to keep the edges separated from each other. Again, I want that as long as possible. Now, one thing that I was not expecting was that the plexiglass was starting to sort of decompose and crack as I was working on it. And for the longest time, I couldn't figure out why. Then I looked it up and found that alcohol can actually eat through plexiglass. I wasn't using alcohol, but I was using safety solvent, which is the stuff that Abe's makes for smoothing the clay. And I think it may have alcohol in it or some other substance that does a similar effect. So I had all sorts of cracks and chips to fix. I don't really mind that there's imperfections in it. Like I said, this is an organic substance that is, comes out of the bodies of animals. So I kind of like that there's some organic messiness to it. At least that's the story I'm telling myself to make myself feel better about it. I'm using UV setting resin here as a gap filler and just mixing some resin pigment into it to try to match the color as close as I can. Once it's set up with a UV light, I can carve it and sand it back down. And finally, I'm starting to seal the two halves into place so I can get the final details done. Lots more carving and sanding. Now with this plexiglass, you have to sand it with a sort of a coarse sandpaper and then slowly use finer and finer and finer. I have it all the way up to something like 2,000 or 3,000 grit sandpaper, which is practically cloth, but that's how you get it all nice and shiny afterwards. And then just sculpting in some of the last details and merging all the parts together here. Speaking of parts, I thought it would be easier to break these nose bits off and work on them separately because they're getting awfully tenuous, just sort of wobbling around on the tip of the face. And sanding the whole blades down to get them nice and clean and shiny. Some final gap and seam filling. Something I did not anticipate is once I got the blade in place, it was so heavy that it kind of wobbled and the amount of material holding it in place wasn't thick enough, so I was getting these cracks. So I dug some trenches on each side and embedded some steel nails and then covered that up to give it the strength it needed. And on to painting. I did a bunch of different tests with various paints. I go into more detail of that in the extended version you can see on my Patreon page. But I settled on this effect, which I thought was nice. I was going for a sort of mother of pearl look to it. And this got me close to what I was going for. Was able to get a little bit of organic, slightly bumpy texture on there, which is something that I really wanted. And then finally went over it with an interference blue paint, which gives it just a very subtle pearlescent sheen. All right, so let's take this bad boy outside and see what it can do. Hey guys. All right, so I just made this sword, and we got to test it. I want to chop something with it. Do you have anything handy that would work for that? I mean, we could.
Okay, I guess I'll use the metal.
Oh yeah, you've got a watermelon. You weren't going to do anything with that, were you? It's not going to be very epic if it's just on the ground, so can you just hold it, like above your head or something? Like get down on your knees and hold it above your head. Okay, so I'll try to stop before it gets to your head, okay? All right. 1, you're back. Okay. 1, 2.
Jeez!
It worked.
You want one? There you go. Good job.
So there you go. I'm really pleased with these. Oh, and don't worry, no watermelons or swords were harmed in the making of that little skit. And Shane, he'll pull through. You know, he always does. I'm just really pleased with these. I think they're going to make a great addition to the Talifar Museum at some point. Thank you so much to all my patrons. Got a couple new ones recently. We've got Adriana, we've got Archie, and we've got Robin, as well as Aletha, who bumped her pledge back up recently. So thank you so much, everyone. Super appreciate it. And I think I'm just going to cut it off there. We're done. Thank you, everyone. See you next time. Bye.
Stop! You violated the law. Pay the court a fine or serve your sentence. Your stolen goods are now forfeit. Then pay with your blood.